Which just leads me on to just asking about where the levels of responsibility sort of come in here, because obviously if a child's doing something inappropriate on Twitter, well, there's parents, they need to be digitally literate then, don't they, in that context, and then there's what the schools need to do, and then perhaps you could ask the question, have the government, have our organisational ruling structures put in the right structure for us to deal with these things? That's perhaps a larger question, but anyone got any views on that?
I think just in terms of the kind of safety issues, I think actually in this country we are quite strong on that. We've just recently surveyed all of our teachers in our programme around where their strengths and weaknesses in actually digital literacy practice and understanding are. And e-safety came back as a very, very strong strand where teaching staff are telling us actually they are very, very confident in that area. And I think that has got to do with a kind of a thread that's run through the country in the last few years. There's been some great cyberbullying advice that came out from ChildNet International that I helped write. There's been numerous different programmes supporting staff, and obviously there's also an Ofsted requirements and requirements around e-safety as well, which helps focus schools' minds on that. So I think we are doing things in that area. I think we're doing, where we're slightly weaker is that we are perhaps a little protectionist in our approach, and I don't mean protectionist in a bad way. What I mean is that we're not necessarily engaging with young people in the kinds of social environments and across the social activities that they're actually doing, and we need to do more of that, I think.
I think you're right, and I think, you know, we're at a crossroads, and we have been for a number of years actually, where schools and other organisations can continue to bury their heads in the sand and try and pretend that Facebook doesn't exist and try and put a block on all of these sites. And actually that's, for me, is completely the wrong approach. What you need to be doing is modelling really good practice and how to use these facilities and these amazing opportunities actually really, really well. And I'm a big fan of things like connectivism as a possibility. And so, you know, your teacher isn't necessarily the font of all knowledge for a young person, but if that can open through that gatekeeper huge numbers of channels to other areas and to other knowledge, then that's an amazing, amazing thing that schools need to do. And I think it's about modelling really good practice and of course showing those pitfalls, show the difficulties, show the risks that are associated with those kind of online environments, but be open about it rather than blocking these opportunities.
But I think this brings us back again in terms of the teaching profession and in terms of other areas to the question of confidence and also, you know, not just individual confidence but also organisational confidence.
What then happens with this education in terms of making Facebook available, social media, which is great. I certainly am a champion of it used in the right way, but they then come into the work environment. And my organisation has requests made of it by its customers to say, well, we don't want our staff to have access to Facebook, any eBay sites, any social networking sites during their working hours. So you're bringing into a work environment these enthusiastic young people that the only way they've been communicating with their peers is being through the likes of social media, to suddenly it's almost they've gone behind the Iron Curtain and that is no longer available to them.
But have they, or are they doing what a lot of young people are doing and bringing their own data plans and their own devices into those environments?
There is a big debate within organisations at the moment about bringing your own device to work, because on the one side where we have this wealth of information and data being made available, you have this security element within an organisation that becomes protectionist of its own data. With the instant messenger solutions, we have encountered situations where staff that have been somewhat disgruntled have left organisations with a tremendous amount of data, and the only way they've been able to get it out of the company's own firewall is through an instant messaging program. So they all get
legal,
closed down.
though, to be.
It is.
And that's probably, and that's, you know, and if it's not illegal in the strictest sense of the term, it's definitely going to be against their terms and conditions of their contract.
Will be, but
so I'm just positioning it in terms of that that's not something that that's not something that they're doing because of social media or because they've got mobile phones with data plans. That's something that they should not be doing anyway, that they're using technologies to do. And I think it's important to make those distinctions.
Absolutely. I mean, people have walked out of organisations with bits of paper for years.
What are those things called? I can't remember. Rolodex.
Going back to the Facebook point, which started all of this, it's this understanding of its appropriateness within a work environment. And I think from what I'm hearing from an employer's perspective is there is this concern about whether or not it's something that they can manage within their workforce.
But certainly some of the biggest companies in the UK are encouraging social media among their employers and trying to get them to go and spread the message about the brand, you know, out there. And there's a number of communications teams are actually looking at the way that they can deploy social media in the whole communications agenda. So responding to people on Facebook, on Twitter, using video in those kind of ways.
It does have it certainly has its role, but it's not necessarily a role that everyone within an organisation. There will be specific departments set up and that will be their function. And I think it's, with all of these things, it's about getting the balance right and the understanding and the word I used earlier, its appropriateness within the environment that you're working within as to how it's used.
I think what you're calling for as well is a bit more of a sophisticated appreciation of the difference between the use and engagement of social technologies for personal use versus the use and for professional use.
That's my point as well. Actually, your the discussion about blocking Facebook in the workplace comes about because people are using it in the wrong way. If that was tackled in schools by using it the right way, you wouldn't have this problem. So it's almost like we're trying to catch up now from a load of people. Every one of us, since 2005 or whenever Facebook came out, we've all developed our own way of using it, and with Twitter we've developed our own way of using it. So there isn't like a standard correct procedure.
No, there's no etiquette.
Because we've had to develop and find our way around.
I dispute that there is an etiquette. I think there are etiquettes, but maybe they're local to different groups and different communities. And some of those etiquettes are not very pleasant even, I think, because
they're not compatible with wider society.
Well,
definitely.
I think just draw some of those strands together a moment, because I think what you're saying there, if I'm getting this correct, is that organisations too, from a management level, need to understand a little bit more about what digital literacy actually means.